Most traders on WallStreetBets live up to the name trading and YOLOing on options. However, a select few choose a different path, a strategy echoed even in ancient Greece. As Aristotle said, patience is bitter, but its fruit is sweet. And oh boy, how sweet it can be. As this one trader's patience knows no bounds, turning $51,000 into $2.5 million not through options, but by holding shares through years of huge ups and downs. And among those who just YOLO on options, only a few make gains consistently, as this trader turned $100,000 into more than $1 million in just a year. But first, it is my honor to present to you one of the most patient traders I have ever seen. He goes by the name of Patriot333, and he turned about $51,000 into almost $2.5 million without options. In fact, he didn't even day trade. Instead, he bought one stock and held for years. His chosen stock is Nvidia, and before I reveal his incredible entry price, let's go back to his first post about this position. 8 months ago, he was up on it by 3,227% or $1,653,415.59. And for some context, at the time this stock jumped up by 30% after incredible earnings. Now just imagine buying 4,400 shares of Nvidia at an insanely low price of just $11.64 and your position turns into $1.7 million. Most people would probably sell. I mean, especially right after the stock jumps up by 30%. But not him. In those 8 months he didn't sell a single share. And as the stock increased by 50%, his position got to $2,468,576. Now the funniest part is that he didn't even buy this stock decades ago. He held Intel a long time and it didn't do anything, so in 2016 he decided to trim a half off and diversify into another chip. He figured Nvidia would be a good choice as they were pretty much a gaming graphics play back then. And what might surprise you is that he started investing with a relatively small amount of money. He opened his brokerage account in 2002 after the tech bubble with 10k and has been adding money to it religiously and buying positions ever since. Now you might say he just got lucky once and that's it. But you see, Nvidia is not the only stock he held for a long time. On 5,600 Apple shares, which he bought at an insanely low price of just $12.52, he's up by 1,343% or $942,000, with his position being worth more than $1 million. But to be fair, he bought into Apple quite a bit earlier than in Nvidia. He started the position in 2011 and added to it through 2013. Another great example is his position of 1,250 PayPal shares, on which he's up by about $60,000, and with his average buying price of $27.48, he's still kicking himself in the ass for not selling it when it was over $300. So his strategy could essentially be summed up as he buys shit and holds it forever. And some of the newer positions he made 8 months ago were on Bank of America, MasterCard and Applied Materials. Needless to say, all of them went up. And now that his oldest kid is about to go to college, he'll finally touch options, as he plans on writing calls on Nvidia to pay for it. But can you even imagine holding this stock since 2016? Holding while this stock slowly reached $70 by the end of 2018, while everyone around you is telling you to sell, but you continue holding with a stone face while this stock falls by 50% in 2019, just for the stock to then increase to $100, $200 and $300, but you keep on holding. And then it falls by 60%, but you simply don't care and keep on holding even though you're losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. You just like the stock, and as it starts going back up from $120 to $589, your incredible patience over the past 8 years is paying off massively. Could you hold through that? Sadly, patience doesn't always pay off, especially not when it comes to options. As trader who has a nickname Dragon of Wall Street and goes by the name of Long was here, went from a 30k gain to losing it all just because he decided to play Monster Hunter for 10 minutes instead of selling it open. But before we dive into this trade, let's go 7 months back when his transformation into a Dragon of Wall Street, who eventually turned $100,000 into more than $1 million, and at one point even decided to YOLO into options with $300,000 just because people called him a began. He posted a weekly gain of 47% or $77,000, which means his account was worth around $240,000. Then he yoloed 100k into call options on some potato chip factory, which I'm assuming is Taiwan Semiconductor, and into a reverse Viagra company which is supposed to be Microsoft, while these two plays were powered by some money he made on Palantir. He was essentially hoping for the second round AI pump, and he somehow made a profit of $15,000, so at that point his account should be worth around $255,000. And then he went completely quiet for the next 5 months, only to return in December with a huge gain and an absolutely insane YOLO. He went almost all in and bought 95,000 shares of Robinhood worth $1,092,025, representing 92% of his portfolio. So yeah, in 5 months of silence, he somehow turned his account from being worth $255,000 into more than $1 million and said, why wouldn't I just YOLO almost everything into one stock? And Robinhood for that matter. Oh yeah, and by the way, he was up by about 10% or $112,000. But in the past year, he's up by 770% or $1,115,000, while he made most of it in the past couple of months. And here is how he made his first $1 million more than 10 years ago. Because if you're still broke in 10 years, it's kind of your fault. School, work, invest, got sick of working, so tried to trade, lost money, went back to work, and back to trading with a better head on the shoulders, and repeat. More specifically, he traded 100k to $1 million and went from 0 to 100k by working in the Bay Area. So overall, he's up by $1 million on this kid's app, as he thinks Robinhood is actually better than most brokers he tried, as long as you're not a GameStop idiot. Well, in a couple of days his gain increased to $154,000. He then bought some TQQ calls, risked $35,000 just to make $800, and then someone dared him to do 0 days till expiry spike with credit spreads, one strike away out of the money, so he did that with QQQ and made it out like a bandit. But the insanity has just begun. Somebody that week called him up for buying $1 million worth of shares, and no one calls him up. So he did the only thing possible and sold his Robinhood shares to buy some goddamn options. He bought into 4 days till expiry, Robinhood, TQQ and some meta calls because once again someone told him to. Luckily this was only 300k worth of options and not his whole account. At the end he made 80k, although he would have made 110k if he didn't f around with those meta calls. And now that he has proven he's not a he went back to the original programming and bought $1,172,000 worth of Robinhood shares. Then he just continued making more and more trades until he was about to break $2 million in this account. And then he threw $1.6 million into Palantir because the CEO's head looks like his grandpa balls. So he bought 90,000 shares at an average cost of $18.50 as he YOLO'd with more than 90% of his portfolio. Now this honestly gets crazier, because a trader by the name of Bull & Cocaine put his entire net worth betting against Meta by buying Meta puts. So the Dragon Wall Street bet 2 times his net worth to inverse him on those Meta puts by buying Meta calls. And at the end he made about 35k after going in and out. And with that he bet 250k that the Islamic Houthis group will blow up an oil tanker by New Year's, as he bought calls on the United States oil ETF, with his only due diligence being that the Islamic New Year's is in July and they are still working on January 1st. Now that trade turned into his first loss of $50,000, and that finally brings us to his most recent loss, as he's down by 98% or $46,000 in Robinhood calls, expiring in 3 days after he was up by 30k just 10 minutes before posting this. And on top of that he's down even more on shares. And if you want to see how this trader lost more than $500,000, click on the video just popped up. If you like my content, make sure to subscribe, and if you have any questions or recommendations, leave in the comments below, and thanks for watching.